Nebraska Preps Postgame with Damon Benning and Jacob Padilla.
That big voice guy, that means we're live. We are back for another week, another schedule snafu. Darn that early press conference with Rutgers being played on a Friday. I'm actually going to miss that game real time.
I was thinking about that earlier today. It's like, it's got to be tough for Damon.
Yeah, it's not my favorite, but I'm much more passionate, I think, about coaching than I am watching, because I can always go back and get the game.
Yeah.
You can't always do this this whole coaching thing.
Yeah, and you can influence the result when you're coaching the game versus just having to sit there and watch it happen.
Yeah.
Like, helpless.
Hey, go team. Right. How you been, man? It's kind of a busy week.
Oh, yeah. We got a lot to talk about today, don't we?
Yeah, winning ugly is a theme, right? Regardless of the sport you cover, just find ways to get W's these days. Isn't that what it's about?
It's pretty much what I saw all weekend long. So, and that's the way that Nebraska basketball is probably going to have to win this year on the men's side too. So it's kind of consistent.
So these last couple of weeks, speaking of which, I'm actually glad to hear him, Coach Hoiberg, say that out loud. Because, and you know me, I'm a big fan of speaking it into existence, what you want your team to be. Subconsciously, it kind of creeps in. He wants them to be defensive minded, says it may be ugly sometimes. If that's how they have to play, then they'll embrace that.
And that's one thing. Hoiberg's pretty good about kind of repeating a message. Really, like, you listen to his press conference, he says a lot of the same stuff. It's really consistent with what he says, what he wants. And that's been the theme throughout this offseason. And it kind of it follows along with the players that they added to the roster. Kind of just the shift. And I don't know that it was 100% intentional. Like they went after some kind of more offensively talented players early on and just couldn't land any of them. So like, all right, these are the guys we've got, and we've got to make it work with these guys. And this is the best way that we can compete with the roster that we have now.
Should volleyball be playing a little more aesthetically pleasing, though?
You'd like to see that, but it just seems like with the constant in and out of different players, you've got young players that are way up and down. It's just hard for them to find consistency on the offensive side. Defensively, they're leading the country in opponent hitting percentage. So
something or nothing that Coach Cook, in a very Coach Cook manner, says, I know Kubik is injured. I just don't know exactly what.
Yeah, he's very good about not paying attention intentionally. I think not speaking to the trainer, so he doesn't have an answer for those situations. Like, even with like the Nico and Haynes, like, we didn't hear like the official back injury until last week's presser. Like, he had just kind of been vague about it up until that point, and then confirmed, it is a back issue that she's dealing with. So, that was certainly interesting. But again, I think he was focused on, all right, we've got a match to win. I know that she's not available. I'll figure out what's going on later.
He doesn't have any problem staying focused, does he?
No, I think he's probably figured that out over the 3 decades of winning a lot of games that he's done.
Yeah, you referenced it earlier, a ton to talk about. Previously ranked number 1, Omaha Westside. We traveled to North Platte, Jacob.
You're worried about those trips out west.
I was. And you know what? We got to own it as coaches. We have to coach it better. I think from a mindset standpoint, we've got to tighten it up. It's a weird team because you have so many what I call good kids, right? Yes, coach, no coach, yes, sir, no, sir. And sometimes when you're trying to set the barometer for a style of play, when they receive instruction so well, you have a tendency to assume they've got it, right? And I think we need to do a better job of, even though you got a lot of good, nice guys, to still keep your foot on the gas, because they'll give you the appearance that everything's going to be okay. And as we found out, North Platte had other fixations. We knew that we were going to be in for a tough night when they won the toss and took the ball. Right? That's the second time that's happened to us this year. Didn't work out so well for Bellevue West, but it did work out for North Platte. And I think it was just so many good, underappreciated players. I thought Colton Tilford was fantastic. He's really a good player. Plays some wide receivers, some running back for him. They're in that single wing. Caden Jonason is just a sophomore at the quarterback spot. Really good player. Caleb Kincaid is a big senior, plays D line for them. They just played really, really hard, and we just couldn't make plays. We were down 14-0 in typical Westside fashion, kind of a slow start. We've been a second half team. We battled back to 17-14. They got the ball back with about 3 minutes to go, and drove down for the winning score. I think at some point you can talk about what coulda, shoulda, woulda. I think it boiled down to three things. Number one, they played hard. They played harder than we did. And I think ultimately, I just wish more people realized if you play, especially at the high school level, JP, and you know this, if you're just willing to play hard, that's 85% of it. Yeah, you need a certain baseline of talent, but effort goes a long way. And you can be a very good high school team just by laying it on the line.
Effort and physicality.
Yeah.
And that's what North Platte does. And 21-17 was the final there. You mentioned Tristan Alvano gave you guys the lead 17-14, and North Platte marched down the field and scored with 19 seconds left, I believe.
Yeah.
And Colton Tilford on the game-winning score and committed to South Dakota State. He had monster game, 16 carries for 195 yards and 2 touchdowns. Brock Robley, they're kind of their power back, 32 carries for 120 yards and a touchdown. As a team, they threw the ball 3 times. They ran it 59 times for 358 yards and 3 scores.
Too many snaps. We couldn't get off the field on third down. We had a chance for as well as we didn't play. We had a chance to make a play on the game-winning drive. That a second down, and they come out and they run the option. He pitched it right to our outside linebacker, Christian Jones. Like literally in his hands. He drops it, kind of scrambles for it. It gets kicked. They recover it. And the very next play, they get a first down on a pass play. And that was just kind of how it was going to go down. But
it's amazing how many times those missed opportunities
come back to get
you. Big time. And I was talking about that, Lena, Nebraska game going up against Indiana. You got an opportunity to get off the field with a pick, whether it's a third and long stop, you got to do it. And early on, they missed a couple opportunities. They had a chance at a pick here or there. It's like those are the plays they need to make. And again, it seems like maybe it's a little bit tough matchup just based on your personnel with how good you are in the back end, even without Caleb. You've got a lot of talented players in the back end, but it's a little different when you got to, as opposed to you're dropping back coverage, you got to defend the run every single snap.
That was really a game. We needed him. That's a Caleb kind of game. Safeties running the alley, tackling out in space, getting downhill in a physical manner. That was a game in which I felt like we definitely missed him. And as a matter of fact, we may have to tinker a little bit with our lineup in terms of what we do at the safety spot to give Ty Kiefer some help back there, who's coming back from 2 ACL surgeries, and maybe get Keenan Cotton in a better spot by moving him back to corner. But we'll have to get creative a little bit and see what happens. And arguably our best defensive player right now, Teddy Rizak, may have to move positions, which we don't want to do.
I was gonna say that's the nice thing about having versatile players. He's played multiple spots already. You can put him where you need to, but at the same time, you want to be able to put guys in their best positions where you can get the most out of them. So you want to be moving guys from a position of strength, not as a reaction.
Yeah, and I don't have any. Got no qualm saying he's been our best defensive player. He is. How he doesn't have a Power 5 offer is beyond me right now. He's 6'2", he's 180. He's gonna grow. Growth plate's still open. He can take on pullers defensively. He can play out in space. We know that he can run. He makes big plays offensively. He's a fantastic player up to this point with a lot of upside. And going back to North Platte, I think the disappointing thing about that game is, as a coach, you always talk to your team about controlling the controllables. And North Platte coming off the loss to Kearney, and didn't really look good doing it. They didn't score until the fourth quarter. And film. I felt like the film was misleading because you can't gauge tempo, right? In terms of off the ball and how they come off the ball. And boy, from the jump, JP, they were all over us. And I felt like they prepared for the moment better than we did.
Yeah. Well, someone else who prepared for the moment, Zane Flores. Want to move on to that?
Yeah.
the other game.
Yeah, number 2, which was a barn burner. We're getting back on the bus trying to get live feeds to watch the end of this football game, and it was unbelievable.
Yeah, I had to stay home and watch Nebraska volleyball on the road. Fortunately, they got that done in three sets pretty quickly, so I could shift my focus. But so I was watching that on my phone. I pulled up this game on the YouTube feed and had that kind of in the background that I was checking in on. Got my writing done, then flipped over to that and just like focus on that the rest of the game. But just insane swings in this game. The final score was Gretna 40, Bellevue West 37. If you hadn't seen, but it was a 14-0 start at Gretna. Bellevue West scored 37-0 or 37 unanswered between the middle quarters there. Then Gretna in the last 6 minutes outscored them 26-0 to win the game. Just one of the craziest things I've ever seen.
If you're Bellevue West, at what point are you concerned about second half collapses and winning close games?
Yeah, and we were talking about before, it's like everything that had to go right for Gretna to win that game. It not only win that game, but win it in regulation happened there. They like one play. Bellevue West needed to make one play, and they couldn't quite make it. I think one of the biggest plays, probably the game that, or one of the most important plays in the game, obviously Flores was phenomenal down the stretch, made every right throw, but the stop on 4th down, Gio Contreras, heck of an effort there. He stretched that thing out, pushed as far as he could. Riley Eggenberger held on there just enough, got him down with probably not even a football length that it looked like short of the line to gain on 4th down. Bellevue West converts that game's over with. But just the effort there to make that play, to get him down just before he crossed the line, that sparked the whole kind of finish of the game there. And that's what you're talking about. One more play. If you get a conversion there, you kind of that, and then when they got it back after what they tied it or whatever, to give them the ball back so quickly. I mean, they gave it 3 and out or whatever it was, kicked it back like 1:15 left to go.
Yeah, and then not getting the 4th and 1 late too, I think really hurt them to salt clock.
So a couple of times there they had a chance there, and not only did they not have an answer, they couldn't even run the clock. They had to give it right back and gave Gretna time to go up there and win the game. So just credit to Gretna on both sides of the ball.
So I think their culture right now with this senior group, and obviously it starts with Flores, but he gets a ton of help from Goldman and Corverdema, and they know how to win football games. It doesn't matter how it looks, how it breaks out. Gretna knows how to win.
Throw out some numbers here. 705 combined passing yards between the two teams. 926 yards total, nearly 1,000 yards of offense and 77 points. It's a lot of offense there. And individually, like you look at the quarterbacks, Flores 24 for 40 for 382 yards and 3 touchdowns and 1 pick that wasn't really his fault. I thought it was a PI. I thought the defender got there early, and 2 rushing touchdowns. And honestly, as I was sitting there, like 37-23, it's like this is the game where Gretna finally misses Joe Roll, because they were really struggling to make to convert the passes there for stretches of that game, especially when they needed to. Receivers weren't able to hold on, weren't quite able to create enough separation. Flores was kind of a little bit off there for parts of the game, and then they switched the flip, and again, like he didn't. I don't know if he missed a throw more than 1 or 2 throws the rest of the night.
Usually, when it matters most is when he plays his best football.
That's exactly what he did. So 5 combined touchdowns there. Nearly 400 yards of offense from him alone.
You surprised that Kalen doesn't make more plays in crunch time?
Yeah, that was it was kind of interesting the way that they again, you're trying to find the balance. They're trying to run out the clock, but you still got to move the ball. They gave it back pretty quickly there. Like I said, you needed a little bit more there, especially with kind of some of the options there they has available. He was 30 of 50 for 325 yards, 3 touchdowns, and had a rushing touchdown there right before halftime. So he was really good for long stretches. Honestly, I thought the first 3 quarters, so 3 and change, like he had outplayed Flores. And again, then those last 6 minutes happened, and Flores reminded everybody who he is. But I've been really impressed with the way that Gio Contreras has kind of stepped up. He had a monster game, 110 yards on the ground and a score on 19 carries, caught 5 passes for 95 yards and another touchdown. So 200 yards from scrimmage for their running back there, who again, early on, that was kind of the question, like who's going to settle in the role. He had the injury early on, and he's had some monster games over the last few weeks. And then Isaiah McMorris, again, continuing to kind of develop into a serious weapon for them. 147 yards on 13 receptions, had a touchdown there, and a 70-yard bomb.
And without Kyrell, he becomes a legitimate number one outside the numbers. I don't even know. I've gone back and forth in my head about this between the two, and I get Hall's upside. But at some point, you have to look at McMorris's productivity and call him that he's probably their legitimate number one.
Well, and it's been interesting seeing kind of him, obviously coming over transfer, maybe not 100% familiar with the system. Like you'd see him making some mental mistakes here and there, and the coaches
he had a few against us, and it cost him a little bit.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I'm thinking of, because I was on their sideline for that game. But you can see the way that he's continuing every week to maybe learn a little bit more. They're finding different ways to use him. He's a guy that they can run screens for or throw the deep shot. And again, that 70-yard touchdown, just a beautiful throw from Kalen, put it right on the money. McMorris ran under it and took it all the way home. He's got some serious speed there. So I'm in Hall had a solid game too. Like again, like it's nice having kind of the bigger, stronger receiver on one side, and then the quick guy they can use in different ways on the other. It's like you said, especially without Kyle Jordan at this point, you're going to need both those guys to consistently show up every single game.
Let's go to Elkhorn South. Just continuing to do what they do, although they've got a tough one coming up this week, maybe with Grand Island. Never an easy place to play. Tough team to play against. Coach Tomlin, we've lamented on and on and on about how good he is, but not tested yet. They're going through a stretch where that schedule has allowed them to maybe kind of catch their breath. And we'll see what happens this week as they go to Grand Island.
Yeah, and congrats to Cole Ballard, 6 touchdowns all in the first half.
Yeah,
finally broke that school record. I know he was close a couple of times, and like it's a blowout, so you're not going to keep playing him just to get the record. I think he had once or twice had 5 touchdowns. Couldn't quite get there, but finally got that school record with 6 scores against Fremont. And yeah, now again, like you said, they've kind of had a little bit lighter stretch these last couple of weeks, and now they're heading out to Grand Island, where we just saw what Grand Island did this week against Kearney, a Kearney team who had knocked off Bellevue West previously. Yeah. So it's going to be a little bit tougher test than we've seen from them since early in the season.
Any given Friday. I mean, that's kind of what it feels like, right? As we go to number 4 with Omaha North, coming off an impressive 64-0 shellacking. Their schedule kind of subsides a little. They've got Grand Island and Elkhorn South looming, but North in a nice little comfort zone, having a chance to get guys ready to go.
Yeah. 4 carries, 3 touchdowns for Tayshawn Porter. Only 57 yards, but they didn't need him. Save the wear and tear on those legs there. Ran for 258 yards as a team, 7 touchdowns. Got a lot of different guys involved. That's a nice thing about these blowouts, is you do get a chance to get some younger guys touches, gives maybe some seniors that have been in the program for a few years chances to play a little bit more than they had previously. Congrats to Trey Brown, who committed to Wayne State.
Yeah, Trey Brown, good player.
And then Champ Davis getting the Nebraska offer, another young guy that Nebraska's showing interest in.
Yeah, and you know what? He's a lot of upside. He's got a good frame. He's sturdy.
Just a freshman.
Yeah. So I mean, pretty good upside for that North bunch. And as we get to Omaha Creighton Prep, just kind of plodding along, right? I mean, do you feel like has Prep kind of been the forgotten team because of that early tough schedule, or do you think they're right there, just kind of laying in the thick of it?
Yeah, I think it again playing 3 of the top 4 teams in the first 4 weeks or whatever it was, and losing all 3 of those games, it kind of put them on the back burner. You're like, okay, they missed their chance. They're not that top tier. They're still a good team, but they're not where they need to be to kind of be the true contender at this point. And we'll circle back later in the season, see if they can figure some things out and get back to that echelon. They and especially some of the last few weeks that went over Millard West was a good one, pulling that away in that one. But they continue to, I think, still have questions about the quarterback position. Sharmar Brown had a light day. Didn't crack 100 yards finally, but he only ran the ball 7 times, so 98 yards and 2 scores. They didn't need him. And is there a more consistent deep threat as a running back than Marty Brown? He had more breakaway touchdowns than anybody in the state this season? It certainly seems like it. Yeah, another 45-yard run in this game.
He constantly finds a way to get loose. I mean, we felt relieved, with the workman-like effort. I think he's 26 for 76 against us, and going into that one, I mean, we were just trying to limit first down runs.
Yeah.
Right? Like, not give up a first down on a run. Like, that's the kind of prowess that he has, because eventually he's going to get you.
Yeah, so it looks like they're continuing to try to work sophomore Tony Coniglio in a little bit at quarterback. Dean Donaldson took the most passes this time. It was 4 for 9 for 96 yards and a touchdown. Ezra Vedral continues to mix in there with some Wildcat, some option quarterback stuff. He had another touchdown for them and continues to come up
good
big
healthy
on
carry
defense.
too, right? It rushed for over 30 yards and only 4 carries, just enough, I think, to keep them honest in that veer option game.
Yeah, and again, he's playing a nice role for them on defense too at the linebacker spot. So they're finding ways to keep making him part of the team. So yeah, we'll see kind of what they do moving forward, taking this week off, and then we'll see if they can close out the season strong. Again, I think you feel good about a lot of parts of that team. It's just, can they consistently move the ball when teams really sell out against the run? The best defenses that actually have the physical ability to slow down someone like Sharmar Brown.
I tell you what, how about this team? Just quietly, 5-1 are the Islanders. Their only loss was to Omaha Westside, which they were never even really in that game. So to see them kind of doing what they're doing, maybe that was just a blip, an anomaly. I guess we'll see when they take on Elkhorn South this week. But they beat North Platte in a close one. They lost to us. They beat Norfolk, beat Lincoln High, hammered Fremont. And you're thinking, oh, okay, well, maybe the little light schedule. But then coming off the big win, Kearney's big win, and a rivalry, they get the Bearcats 28-21 in a fantastic football game.
And Grand Island touchdown late to win that one.
No love lost between those two schools.
No, I'm sure the atmosphere was fantastic out there. Grand Island continues to kind of find itself, to establish itself, like you said, off to a great start this season. The one loss is against Westside, which no shame in that. And that's a good win over Kearney team, who again had really turned some heads with that win against Bellevue West.
They have our full attention on this week's scouting report.
Yeah, and another tough one for them. And Kearney's a team, again, I saw them the first week. Again, they had one starter coming back, basically a whole new team from last year. You could see they were trying to figure some things out. I worry about their running game. I really liked what I saw from Traven Beckman, and he's continued to get better and better. Passed for 240 yards and 3 touchdowns in this one. But Grand Island held Kearney to 15 rushing yards on 10 carries.
Just, in watching their running game, they'll get you a couple ways outside zone and kind of sprint option. And there's not a lot to it. We'll see if they can kind of improve upon that. But Grand Island pretty good at the point of attack. And how about Cohen Evans?
Yeah.
It's got the great bloodlines, efficient in the passing game, just 7 of 14, but he got the 2 touchdowns out of it. And finds a way to get points on the board.
Yeah, Caleb Richardson, workhorse, over 100 yards on the ground.
He's a hammer.
Jace Chrisman, 88 yards and a score. Colton Marsh, 56 yards and a touchdown. They had a lot of different guys step up and make the plays that they need to get that win. And now again, that facing Elkhorn South. So here's another chance to kind of build on that win to show like, hey, don't forget about us. This 5-1 record, this is for real.
And now that the team that I feel like I know the least about, even though as you know, as our listeners know, pretty intrigued by them before the season started because I like their roster. What do we make of Papiola Vista South?
66-0 over Omaha South.
They just do. I mean, they've had some blowout wins. And then were blown out by Elkhorn South.
Stumbled in their one real chance to show that they belong with those top teams. But again, they're 5-1. That's the only loss. Devin Jones, 144 yards and 4 touchdowns. Kylan Connor,
he is a horse.
121 yards and a touchdown as their second back there. It was 22-0 in the first quarter, 27-0 in the second. So that thing got away from the Packers in a hurry. But now they get another chance to show what they can do. They got Gretna on Thursday, and I'm sure Gretna, they're going to be pretty beat up coming off that win, but also probably going to be feeling good. Like, hey, we can, no matter what situation we find ourselves in, we can win this thing. So that'll be a tough one and another chance to show that again, they do belong in that top 10 because that back end, that 8, 9, 10, 11, like there's been a lot of jumbo in there, and it seems like every week it's somebody different.
Yeah, and as speaking of which, number 10, Millard South, making their way back now, continuing the undefeated streak with Colziall back.
Makes a bit of a difference, doesn't he?
Yeah, and now they go to Columbus. May not learn a ton there, but I would put Millard South, JP, right there in the teams that I don't think I have a good handle on, even though I do like their roster. They're right there with Papiola Vista South in that regard. And
game-winning field goal for Simon McClannon, 22-21 over Lincoln East. Koziel, 24 for 36 for 260 yards and a touchdown, 15 carries for 93 yards. He basically is their offense right now. And it's their leading rusher, obviously leading passer. Lance Rucker, 5 catches, 52 yards, 8 tackles, 2 sacks. Just kind of making a difference on both sides. And Brock Murtaugh healthy again, 9 tackles, leading the way for them. Jeter Worthley continues to kind of improve and figure things out there as a sophomore, starting at quarterback for Lincoln East. 16 for 22 for 250 yards and 2 touchdowns. They contained him on the ground. He only had 58 yards on 22 carries, but Dash Bowman had a big game on both sides of the ball.
I think
we've talked about,
I like him quite a bit.
We've talked about him previously, but 7 carries for 44 yards and a touchdown, 4 catches for 80 yards and 15 tackles, including 8 solo. So both sides of the ball making a big difference there. And again, he's another guy that to keep an eye on moving forward. And Malachi Coleman, 8 catches, 45 yards and a touchdown. I think they're trying to continue figuring out ways that they can
get him the ball.
Obviously, last year with all those different wideouts, like he's just a big play threat waiting to happen every single time. It's harder to get those deep shots when the entire defense is focused on you.
And he had the uncharacteristic fumble that resulted in points too after the catch. And I think you're right. Just still trying to figure out how they can use him to be effective in this offense.
Especially countering the ways that others are choosing to defend him and them as a team. So, but that is a good win for Millard South. And now they face Columbus and got a big one coming up in a few weeks.
No look ahead for us. we've got our hands full with Kearney coming to town, and I'm sure both teams. Well, I know we're upset. I could tell by yesterday's practice and the physicality. So that one would be interesting. But Coach Cool, one of the best in the business, will get our best.
I think last Class A game we'll mention here, the Lincoln game we talked about. It's like still trying to figure out who is there. Nobody wants to claim it.
Maybe Southwest does, though.
Lincoln Southwest, 17-14 win over Southeast, just when we thought Southeast was figuring things out. They'd gotten on a roll. It was 14-7 at the half. The Knights led. Southwest tied it up in the third, and then Silverhawks got that field goal to win it. Cal Newell has had a monster season on the ground and ran the ball 33 times in this one for 124 yards and 2 touchdowns, caught 2 passes for 34 yards. And Southeast, they 54 yards rushing on 35 carries, 1.5 yards per carry.
That's not going to get it done.
No.
So how about this, though? So they got Lincoln High, they got Lincoln East, they beat Lincoln Southeast. Maybe North Star, but I don't see it in terms of the matchup. So safe to say right now that Southwest is the best team in Lincoln?
It is. I think at this point, it's just hard to kind of put that Papillion Vista loss into perspective, because we thought, like, you look at the record and it's like, okay, that's kind of what we thought for Southwest. We thought they had a chance to be the best team and they beat the other teams, but then you go and lose to a team that's not really in the top up here in the Metro. So it's like, what happened there is just a one bad night, like what the situation there is. But I mean, at this point, you have to give them their credit for the games that they have won in their overall record.
Yeah, jumping down to B. The collision course, it seems right now for Bennington and Gross, but I got to continue to keep my eye on Scotts Bluff, don't I?
So I was I think looking at this, so the way that Class B, I feel like kind of you slide into tiers. You've got Bennington, I think, as a clear number one. I think Gross is a clear number two. I think there's probably a little bit of separation there based on what those two have done, especially against like opponents. But I think those are clear 1 and 2. Obviously, they're two undefeated, both 6-0.
And probably 3 through 8 are interchangeable. Because that's kind of how I look at it.
I'm looking. I think Scottsbluff, Elkhorn, and Waverly. I think that is the third tier. I think that's probably where I put it. Those three.
Don't put Scott in that tier yet.
Not yet. I went and saw them against Pius. I think they're good right there at that number 6. They'd be the next team for me. But I think what Waverly did against Scottsbluff, what they've done against some of the better teams. They're 4-2, but I think they've looked better. You look at Scott's losses; they got blown out by Elkhorn and Bennington. So, and that Elkhorn loss in particular is the one they like. Maybe Scott's not quite there. I think they're still trying to get better at the quarterback spot. He's still developing there.
Does Waverly solidify themselves in that tier after you see what they do against Pius? Because you just saw Pius. Yeah. You saw Pius against Scotts. You think you'll have a pretty good barometer there?
Yeah, I think that's one where Waverly needs to win pretty handily. Pius has some pieces and they're a good team overall, but again, it was a 23-8 win for Scott there on Thursday night. And Waverly was in that game, Scottsbluff. It was a tie game, and they managed to win that thing in overtime. Waverly's got a touchdown there at the end to send it to overtime, and Scottsbluff won it there. But they did a good job containing Stoll for the most part.
Yeah.
Boyle had a good day, but not like 126 yards for him. Like that's pretty average. It was not a 200-yard game.
Yeah.
Stoll only completed 3 passes, had an interception. Under 100 yards rushing, and basically their offense is Stoll and Boyle. It's those two basically doing all their racking up all their yardage. So Trey Jackson, solid 142 yards passing. Evan Castens, 16 carries, 75 yards, and 2 scores. So Scott and Waverly's tough. They've got a couple different. They can run the ball a little bit, but they can beat you through the pass as well. They're kind of one of the more balanced. I don't know that
it's amazing what an injury at the quarterback spot last year did for a little foreshadowing of how they can play offense.
Yeah, it gave Jackson an opportunity to kind of get that experience now. And so he had some good reps under his belt going in the offseason to continue training. But that I don't know that they're great at either one, but they can beat you both ways. And I don't know how many teams there are like that, especially in that middle of tier. So that is what I like about Waverly and kind of why I have them there. Again, I need to see a little bit more from Scott. The good thing, at Pius, they did show up better against the run than they had previously because they had gotten gashed by some teams on the ground. Just defensively, they hadn't shown as much. I thought McCoy Holtham had a huge game on that end. I mean, it seems like they're shifting more focus on defense. He had 6 touchdowns in 4 games last year as a running back, and you thought, all right, he's going to be pretty good here. Seems like they've wanted to save him. They're not playing him full time both ways. They're mixing him here and there because they got a few different backs that they rotate. But Holtham 5 carries for 105 yards, had a 20-yard score, had a 64, I think it was, something like that, yard touchdown where he broke it off. He had a sack. He had the game-sealing interception. He had a 4th down pass breakup where rushing the quarterback got the hand up before he could get the ball out. Like he just made so many big plays in that game for them, and that's what they're going to need. But yeah, I think Scott's. That was a good win for them, 23-8 against Pius, but I still need to see a little bit more before I put them back up into that same group with the top 5.
Much to learn. Blair has not passed either test. I think it was 42-7 and 34-7 when they saw Gross and Bennington.
Yeah, 45-7 this week against Bennington, 137 total yards.
Yeah. So can we learn anything against Elkhorn, who's kind of in that same vein, sitting at 4-2, don't have bad losses though. Losing to quality opponents. You feel like there's something to learn there?
Yeah, that's Blair's chance to kind of get back on track to put themselves back into that third tier. I think right now they're seventh in Sauter's coaches rankings, and that's probably fair behind Scott and those top 5 that we just talked about. Elkhorn coming off of a good win against Elkhorn North, 49-35, which seeing them put up 49 points with kind of their old school offense, that was certainly interesting. I haven't seen their side of the box score to see kind of how exactly they did it, but yeah, it was 21-7 second quarter. That was the difference. Otherwise, it was kind of even in the first, in the other 3 quarters. They just kind of pulled away and held on. But credit to Elkhorn North's Josh Basilovic for kind of keeping his team in it. 287 yards passing, scored 3 total touchdowns. Give them a shot. It's again Elkhorn North to have them kind of in the top 10 and just year 3. I think is pretty impressive. They're sitting there 4-2 at number 9. So credit to the Wolves, but yeah, Elkhorn 4-2, and now they've got the big game against Blair coming up on their home or at Blair.
Anything else you're looking forward to?
No, I think we hit most of
there's some big ones in Class A.
Yeah. I think fortunately, I'm not going to be able to go to any games this week because you got volleyball, football on Thursday and Friday this week, so I won't be able to see any in person.
Shame on you, Jay.
There's some big ones. Before we get out here, though, I do want to give a shout out to Chris Colazo again from Aurora, who
a gaudy 6-0 record and has not been tested.
24 carries for a school record 289 yards and 5 touchdowns. Also caught racked up 80 receiving yards and another touchdown, so 6 touchdown day. He now has 50 career rushing touchdowns. So that's the school record for career rushing touchdowns. And that was a single game rushing record for them. And he had gotten close to a couple, or tied it, I think, the previous one a couple times.
I'm glad you brought them up because they got a monster matchup with Adams Central, who's also undefeated. So 2 6-0 teams. Not sure if Adams Central can hold up front, but they're going to get a steady diet of C squared.
And it's good for Rory to, again, face another good team there. Obviously, the last couple of weeks, they've been rolling. So face another test, be good for them as they prepare for that postseason run because that's really where it's going to matter the most.
A couple of who's going to get right, who's dialed in coming off of losses, and some prove-its. A lot of that and more to cover next week with Nebraska Preps postgame. That's my man, Jacob Padilla. I'm ODB. Don't you dare miss it.
He'll be back on Monday.